homeless and substance addicted veterans, trying to help them, doing things. You've never talked about veterans or our troops until you started sending out nasty mail.
Mr. Towne.
Sure. Mr. Callahan, in 2006, your party was elected to a landslide victory to end the undeclared and unconstitutional war in Iraq, but then failed to deliver on this promise, and instead expanding the Afghanistan war, causing the deaths of 5,774 American soldiers and wounding well over 33,000 service members in Iraq alone, as well as many tens of thousands of innocent civilians. Meanwhile, the size of the VA has mushroomed from $45 billion in 2001 to $125 billion this year. I will drive for rapid, immediate, and orderly withdrawal of all troops from both Iraq and Afghanistan and redeployment to protect our borders. Will not approve a single dollar to extend these military occupations. And my question for you is, why do you wish to continue the war on terror, bankrupting our nation and placing our troops in harm's way? And how can the people in the district expect you to make your own decisions after all the visits and financial backing by the special interest groups and establishment politicians like Mr. Biden and Ms. Pelosi, who also support these wars?
Jake, I will tell you that I think we need to remember why we're in Afghanistan. I think we all recognize that 3,000 folks died on a Tuesday because they decided to go to work that day. We are still a nation at war. There is a very real threat out there, and we need to go to all of the areas, Afghanistan and Iraq, and throughout the globe where Al-Qaeda and terrorists mean to do us harm. We're all encouraged by the end of combat, the combat mission on Iraq. I think it shows that we are on the right track. As I talked about earlier today, I support the December review by the generals and the progress that we're making in Afghanistan and the putting forth of a timetable next year for the responsible withdrawal from Afghanistan. And again, it's got to be based on the conditions on the ground. It's got to be based on the recommendations of the generals.
Mr. Dent.
Question? I have my question. Okay, John, you've tried to take credit for jobs created by others in Bethlehem. You said you created 5,000 jobs as though the actual businesses responsible for those jobs had nothing to do.
You're clearly not paying a lot of attention. What I have talked about is the fact that we have created the right environment in the city of Bethlehem, recognized by Fortune Small Business as one of the 100 best places in the country to launch a new business in 2008. We have created the right environment, and it's city programs that were cited by Fortune Small Business as to why we've created that environment and the good that we've done. I don't take all the credit, Charlie, but what I'm saying is we collectively have created the right environment for the private sector to thrive and to invest in the city of Bethlehem to the tune of $2 billion, and that investment has resulted in 5,000 jobs in the city of Bethlehem. Those are the facts. Again, your job record, Charlie, and I will put my record of job creation and economic growth against yours in the last 6 years in Washington any day of the week. It's 8 billion lost jobs and 18,000 lost jobs, not to mention your support of trade policies that have cost Pennsylvanians 50,000 manufacturing jobs. It's time you start taking some accountability for that, Charlie.
Mr. Callahan. Mr. Callahan, you can ask a question.
Yes. I will ask my question of Jake. Yes. Jake, do you think... I'm happy you're at the debate at all, Jake. Jake, do you think that we should eliminate the Department of Education? Where would that leave disabled children and programs like Head Start, which I took advantage of as a small kid?
Sure. On the question of the Federal Department of Education, what you need to realize, Mr. Callahan, is that we already have 50 state departments of education that comply by providing dollars to our local school boards. And when a local school board needs to go to the federal government and need to ask for money, it creates quite a bit of problems. So the whole thing is to get back to following the Constitution. The Department of Education has only been around for the past 30 years. And if you talk to a lot of students and educators in the region, what they'll tell you is it leads to people teaching the test, and it's just not what's best for the students. So I am very much for education. I do believe that on the local and state level, that's where the answers lie. And when your tax dollars go to Washington, D.C., you shouldn't expect to see them back. And the budget of the Department of Education is $100 billion, and Pennsylvania's share of that is roughly somewhere around $2 billion. And I think that if we just kept that money here in Pennsylvania and decided to use it ourselves, we'd be much better off than trying to go along with all these federal programs that create a one-size-fits-all and create stagnation in our education. And take a look at all the results that we've had over the last 20 years.
Mr. Towne.
Sure. My question is for Mr. Dent. Mr. Dent, as a 20-year career politician, you have sworn an oath to protect the United States Constitution multiple times. This document, especially with its 9th and 10th Amendments, greatly limit the powers of the federal government. I believe you have broken your oath innumerable times, but in the spirit of debate, can you please explain where in the Constitution do you have the right to free taxpayer-paid health care and pension benefits for the rest of your life, but your constituents do not? Where in the Constitution do you have the power to continue to authorize funding for undeclared and unconstitutional warfare? Where in the Constitution do you have the power to bail out private corporations with taxpayer-paid dollars? And where in the Constitution do you have the power to violate the Fourth Amendment rights of our citizens to authorize federal agents to commit warrantless wiretapping, secret searches, and nude body searches under citizens underneath the Patriot Act and other legislation that you have supported?
Well, there are a lot of questions there, Jake. Jake, you fancy yourself as quite the constitutionalist, but you kind of strike me more as an articles of confederation kind of guy. But nevertheless, having said that, when it comes to the war, you said with respect to the Afghanistan war, I heard you on a radio show, you said, what goes around comes around. That the United States had caused...
It's a CIA term, blowback.
I'm answering the question. You had stated that the United States was responsible for the attacks of 9/11, like a 9/11 truther. I couldn't disagree with you more.
I'm not a 9/11 truther, Charlie.
Well, I'm answering your question. You made the statement on the Bobby Gunther Wall show. We all heard it. Patriot Act. The Patriot Act was very, very important to make sure that our intelligence agencies, as well as our domestic law enforcement, could collaborate. There was a wall separated. That was very important. And you talk about the invasions of privacy. Well, we have roving wiretaps right now for drug dealers. We simply said in counterterrorism operations, we should be able to use roving wiretaps on those same types of on terrorists. Nothing wrong with that. We should be doing it. It has helped make America safer. There has not been a successful attempt, well, with the exception of the Fort Hood incident, there's not been a successful attack in this country since 9/11 because of that act and others.
Mr. Dent.
Sure. My question is going to be to John. You probably think I'm going to ask you about all the job-killing policies you support, like the health care law, card check,
A lot of jobs.
card check,
Charlie.
card check, deny secret ballots for cap and trade, the energy tax, the stimulus of Phil. I'm not going to ask you that.
No, don't ask us.
On April 21st of 2005, you made this statement at a candidates debate for mayor, and this is an exact quote. I would immediately be able to lower taxes and not have to raise them for a time. End of quote. This was part of your casino sales pitch to the people of Bethlehem. You receive host fees for the casino since 2009. You haven't delivered the tax relief, the property tax relief that you promised. My question is on behalf of the taxpayers of the city of Bethlehem. Will there be a property tax cut in your 2011 budget? You failed to provide one in the 2010 budget.
I've been, again, very clear about this topic since 2006, and I did make that statement in 2005, and for those of you who are aware of the groundbreaking regional revenue sharing agreement that we brokered as a result of the gaming fees, is that, I made that statement before that revenue sharing agreement was approved. An agreement that will get $3 million to the city of Allentown, that will get $450,000 right here to the city of Easton, in addition to the host fees to the city of Bethlehem and the surrounding communities. So circumstances changed, and we did the right thing with those host fee dollars. The fact of the matter is, in the last 4 years, and I was proud of helping Allentown and Easton, but the reality is, in the last 4 years, we have stabilized taxes in the city of Bethlehem. There has not been a tax increase in the city of Bethlehem in 4 years. Despite what you may read about or hear about in some of Charlie Dent's mail pieces. At the end of the day, it's the longest period of time in 30 years in our city's history that we haven't had a tax increase. That That's my fiscal record. $60 million less debt, stable taxes, and no tax increase in 4 years, and cutting $10 million in government waste. And I'll put it up against yours, Charlie, any day of the week.
Mr. Callahan.
My question is for Congressman Dent. Charlie, Jake just a few minutes ago laid out an argument to abolish the Department of Education. Do you agree with him? And Charlie, would you agree with Jake, and should we eliminate the Department of Education?
John, no, I've never supported the elimination of the Department of Education, but like many federal bureaucracies, and to deal with our deficits, that department, along with others, are going to probably come under the budgetary knife come the new year. You talk a lot about tough fiscal choices, but we have to rein in spending, and $4.4 trillion is what's been added to the baseline spending since Nancy Pelosi became Speaker. She supports you. You support the policies, the health care law, the $2.6 trillion takeover of health care, the stimulus, unpaid for, over $1 trillion in financing. So we're going to have to make some very hard choices. I am prepared to do that. I don't know that you are. My time. But that's the reality. Education, as we all know, is critical for our children. It is principally a state and local function. And as I said, the Department of Education is going to come under very close review, like every other department. And I suspect they're going to be asked to tighten their belts, like everybody else in this country.
Thank you, gentlemen. We've reached the end of that portion of the debate. We'll begin